It is a good experience. One thing about Amex is they do much of their information, it is educational in nature, but it is strongly branded, and much of the information that you can get is behind the login, so if you're a customer. So they do pull that back, and you should always remember that. So education, thought leadership, everything is important. Somehow the value proposition of what you're trying to tell in your message needs to relate back to your product. So I've seen excellent, you know, my company and others are not any exception of this. I've seen excellent nurture campaigns with information that I love the information, but I couldn't tell you what company or why I would ever do business with that company because there's nothing in that message that maps me back to their solution opportunities. So always have to make a case. There's a strong case for not always being salesy, but you can provide value as long as that value maps back to why you are providing it, and that's a key. So just to give some tactical, you had asked about what does a B2B campaign look like. So, you know, for us there are great opportunities, but they have to be built. So it's all about time for B2B. I mean, first of all, putting up a Facebook page for B2B, it's not as easy to gain relevant following, and relevant is a huge word you should always remember. I could give you a story of, you know, an individual within my company that wanted to start a Facebook page, and hey, let's, you know, we're going to offer a free camera, and I think there was a situation where somebody did this, and oh, I got 300 people in one day. How much you want to bet those 300 people, not one of them is probably relevant to our business? Because I would just click if I was on Facebook if somebody said I could win something. That means nothing to me, and it should be nothing to you if it's not relevant. That's one of the things. Another, LinkedIn is a good example of how to leverage it, a B2B opportunity and then use it in a traditional space. So for LinkedIn, there are different ways to use LinkedIn. So using it personally, using it for career opportunities is only one small piece. I feel like it is a treasure trove for B2B people. So if you have at least the salespeople in your company, but you should have everyone in your company build a profile, and I don't have to spend my time telling you, you can Google and you can find out. There are excellent ways to build profiles with links, with the types of opportunities, the kinds of recommendations. For example, if you're a salesperson, and we've done this with our salespeople in different areas. If you're a salesperson, you should be writing and having recommendations that show you as a leader in your space. So basically you're building your profile, you're building how you interact with groups, you're building your connections, and you're always building your connections and going through to those first and second and third and those decision maker connections, especially in a B2B, because those are the kinds of people that you need. But then you take those campaigns and you integrate them with more traditional, more digital. So I don't know if you realize, but you have the ability to purchase at an extremely low rate from LinkedIn. I'm advertising for LinkedIn here, but you can actually put your ads on every one of the employees that work for your company. So anytime anybody looks for your employee, and think about how many times if you're actively pushing them and asking them to participate in building profiles, because that's one of the best ways to show your company in a good light. Every time they go to somebody in your company, they see your ad. So that's an opportunity. Every time that you have someone in your company participate in a group, they're going to search that person's profile. That's an opportunity. So that's a way of taking, one example, LinkedIn, spending the time to build your collateral within that platform, and then leveraging it in a more traditional campaign. So that's just one example of the way you can integrate in a B2B way. B2B, the signal there, it's all about time. You have to build your reputation over time on social if you're B2B.
I'd like to add to LinkedIn, and it's not, I think LinkedIn is maybe more of a focus because it's one of the only platforms where you really do have a captive audience for I think we share that here is you know, how do you get the relevant content in front of the right people? And because LinkedIn has such, you know, tremendous database behind it, you know, I'm able to say, I want to address just the IT architects out there in the world, and I want to make sure that they know about a particular, you know, research-based or educational type of or how-to type of content that I truly feel is going to make their jobs better, right? And it might not even necessarily have to do directly with our products. It might just be something we've maybe hired IDC to do that is purely educational, and they'll be compelled to share. And that could be also extended in different ways. So you can do targeted advertising, whether it's in the top banner that almost looks like a status update, but it's really not. You could do inbox, I think they call LinkedIn Box or InMail or whatever it is, but very targeted. Those cost a little more, but the ROI is very compelling. And then you can also, you know, one of the things we're doing we have about 14,000 people in our company, and you know, how do you empower those 14,000 people to be your voice? You know, to piggyback on, you have, how do you empower the employees to spread the word on LinkedIn? Each person, nowadays probably has anywhere between 100, 500 contacts or more, right? And getting that, even if you just got, if we got 1% of our staff, 140 people to share one status update on theirs. Many people don't even know they can do status updates on LinkedIn. Still, you'd be surprised. How great would it be if you could spoon feed them something that has a broad stroke, educational, compelling sort of data point for an IT professional in my case, and spoon feed them something they could be sharing that they might not even realize even exists as an employee. And sort of, we use Chatter, for example, an internal collaboration to help make suggestions for those sales execs or product development or whomever, and say, share it on your social media channel of choice, and one of those certainly is LinkedIn. And a lot of people don't even realize it's an option. So,
if I could just say, following up, we do have, we share the fact that our product offerings and service offerings are complex. They're not as easy as buying Coca-Cola. So it is a good opportunity to have groups. So you go out and you're advertising, you're speaking, you have a product, and then you lead people to a LinkedIn group, and you have more discussions, peer-to-peer solution opportunities, etc. So it gives people those opportunities, recommendations, and all these people become an advocate for your brand. And 50% of pretty much all the product making, decision buying purchases in the B2B space usually comes somehow from some brand advocate influence. So about 50% of decision makers look to brand advocates when they're making a decision on a B2B type company. So these all become advocates of your brand, people that join your groups, people that recommend you on there, and they can fit into your traditional marketing campaigns. It's just a matter of, there really is no limit. It's just a matter of your imagination and how you can pull them together. I think the Smirnoff presentation was an excellent example of that. There's really no limit to the imagination. It's really just sit down and, figure out what you need to do.
So we've spoken a bit there about kind of paid ads. Earlier on, I think the lady from Saatchi said that some of her clients are spending as much as 28% of their overall digital marketing spend into social. How much is social? How important is social now as part of the whole kind of B2B marketing mix? And how much investment is starting to be required to really make a difference?
I'll take a stab. I mean, if you look at our organization 2-3 years ago, I would say it was sort of sort of opportunistic, and that's not a bad thing. It was just sort of starting to take an upswell in our industry, and starting to see, how can we take advantage of social. And to put in perspective, about of the 14,000 employees, I think 1% of us had access to those channels. So nobody could even see what we were doing on YouTube or see what we're doing on Twitter from work. And so we took a look, we took a seat back and said, okay, how do we, to answer your question, sort of, how do we make an investment and be smart about it, right? And what we've done is we're looking, from a digital standpoint, to answer your question, what percentage of social media investment? I think it's more right now focused on the human capital side than it is on a promotional spend. I think as marketers, we probably always want a little bit more promotional spend, right? But the reality is it's really focusing on the human capital. Certainly we partner with different vendors, like for monitoring tools, content management tools, to some degree promotion. And a big part of our human capital and partnership with vendors is also looking at sort of how do we take our online, ca.com, and extend that into a better mobile experience as well. And there's some investments there. So,
I guess to kind of continue the we don't spend a whole lot mantra, but to put it in perspective, we spend zero on what people would determine as traditional advertising. Nothing, not $1, and hence no one knows who we are in the general public, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Our customer knows who we are, our customer knows what we do, etc. But in social media, so we spend more than zero. It's mainly human capital. It's funny, in our businesses, we're starting we'll launch a new website soon. It'll be integrated with social media, and then that's kind of phase one. Phase two, next year we'll have an extranet part of it, so we can allow other businesses and other partners to come a certain way into us to collaborate on different things. And when we went to all the businesses that we have and the different communications functions, they're really concerned about the traditional things people are concerned about when you launch a new website. You know, do we have enough content? Is there enough time to create it, et cetera? And so we asked them a question, kind of the same question you just asked me. You know, how much do you depend upon digital for your communications? How much you rely on it? And some of them said, 50%. Some of them said, other numbers. And she said, well, how many people do you have working on it? And they said, oh, we have one person. I said, oh, well, you need to take a look at your personnel, and how it's, and so we're still kind of not stuck, we're still at that place where you described a year ago. We're still kind of in the tentative, we're a risk-averse business sector, and we don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to make mistakes in public, and so it's very tentative at this time. Bringing me onto the company was a kind of a big risk by some, seen by someone who's going to focus on social media and digital. But we're making steps, and for me, any kind of progress is good.
So I'll say that it's not a big part of our budget when you say specifically social media. Usually it is a component of other things that we're doing. So you're looking overall holistically at, okay, this is what we're trying to drive, and then there's a component that's the social piece. And so it gets lost in that budget. I will say that you can throw a lot of money at social media, and there are some companies that do it so well, but that's because they've had a very strong strategy. It really is all about time. So you can throw millions of dollars to be crazy about it at, say, LinkedIn or Facebook or any of those. That's not going to build you what you need as a following. And that's where the challenge is. You used to be able to take as much money as you needed and get what you needed. You can't do that with social media. You need to build upon it, and you really need a strategy to do that. As I said, everybody can put up pages and purchase tools and platforms, but you're not going to get what you need out of it, just like anything else. I always go back and I always say to people, think about CRM. Remember when everybody had to have a CRM system and they're spending millions of dollars and there was no strategy behind it? Now you have all these fancy, expensive systems that are kind of not really useful or not being used well. It's the same way. Your company can have dozens of stagnant Twitter feeds and all these things going on because there was no strategy behind it. So you can probably do best with a good strategy and approach, and take what is free and spend minimally and do just as good, if not better, as someone who's willing to throw money without thought. So that's where I think the small businesses have really good leverage along with the bigger businesses in this kind of a space.
So it seems a bit of a theme that kind of human capital is probably more of a thing and more of the investment that you guys are doing. What does that look like? I mean, obviously all the companies have got at least one, right? But who else is it? Do you have teams of community managers? Are they large teams? How does that work?
Yeah. So I would say if I were to answer sort of today, I would say there's a very small handful of people in the company, such as myself, that my full-time job is social media. When the past 2 years at CA Technologies, I was focused on our overall social media strategy for the company, what that meant, how we were going to open up the access to all of the company, how we were going to allow not just the governance, how to manage the governance side of it, but also the empowerment side of it, the training, the education, all of that, which is quite an undertaking. And now what I'm doing is I'm focusing more on how do we take what we're doing from a thought leadership standpoint of the company, whether it's our Smart Enterprise magazine, which is a print and digital version publication, or it's the Smart Enterprise Exchange, which is our online community for senior executives, or it's what we're doing for thought leadership on on behalf directly on behalf of CA.com, which is what we're doing with consumer-driven IT. There's a lot of people in the company like myself where certain groups are taking sort of part of their human capital, we'll say, and saying, we're going to fully dedicate people on our team to do social media. And it's not just in marketing, right? You'll have people that we call them SMEs. So they're basically subject matter experts. They're